Good brothers and sisters, we have an argument with God, and we should put it to an end. The argument that we have with God is a source of mediocrity within us, and it blocks what St. Teresa of Avila, the doctor of the Church whose feast we celebrate today, called the way of perfection. St. Teresa taught that the treasure of heaven, union with God, lies buried in the human soul. We don't have to go roaming to the ends of the earth or even come to New York City in order to find it. Our baptized souls, the life we hold within, already is a home for God. She called it an interior castle. And at the very center of the castle is the throne for the King. God doesn't just want to save us. He wants to make us holy. He wants to sanctify us. He wants us to shine with a brilliance, a radiance, an incandescent light of holiness from within, even in the midst of this darkened and fallen world. And yet we have an argument with him about that. The argument that we have with God starts with an argument that we have with ourselves. Within us there is a conflict, a deep and bitter conflict between our deepest longings and our superficial fears. We have longings that are so deep for all the good things in the world. Our desires roam across every boundary. The human heart wants nothing more than to reach up into infinity and grab all that we can. We have deep longing. Teresa's friend, St. John of the Cross, said that within the human heart are infinite caverns of yearning. And yet, in addition to our longing, alongside of them, or floating on the surface of our desires, is fear. We are afraid. We are so afraid that our desires in life, the yearning that burns within us, will never, ever, ever be satisfied. That if we are so stupid as to try to hope that it should be, we will be shut down, thrust away by disappointment and heartbreak. And so, without really choosing it, we live our lives in a band of mediocrity, in the middle, where we don't dare too much, and we won't lose too much, and maybe we'll be okay. But we know it, that we were not meant to live that way. And that's where our argument with God comes in. Because God says, I will fulfill all of your desires. I am the answer. Come to me. I will fill you up. I will slake your thirst and satiate your hunger. Come to me. I am the answer. We want to believe it, but we will not. Because what if it's not true? What if we throw it all in for God? Give everything for him entirely in our lives. hold nothing back for ourselves, and then we find that it doesn't work, we come up short, then what are we going to do? What will we do if we give him everything and it's not true? Or worse, maybe he can fulfill every one of our desires, but he doesn't want to. Why not? Because he sees us. He sees us as we really are. If the people in our lives could see who we really were, we know they wouldn't want anything to do with us. And God does see. So what's wrong with him? We know ourselves well enough to think that probably our lives aren't worth all that much. And so if Jesus is willing to go to the cross and hold back nothing and die for us, well, then he's a fool. All the more reason not to trust him. Of course, we would never put that into words, but it's an expression of our deepest feeling. And this is why we will not go all out for our Catholic faith. This is why we play the trick that was invented on this island down the way. We hedge the investment of our lives. We hold back. But what if we didn't? What if we threw everything into it? What if we hedged nothing? What would that mean for us? We know what it would mean. We need to believe it. It would mean great suffering and tremendous joy. It would mean that Jesus himself, suffering and triumphant, would be here with us in our lives, that we could depend upon him for everything, that he would share our lives. J.R.R. Tolkien wrote a letter to his son Michael. Do you remember it? He said, "Out of the darkness of my life, so often frustrated, I put before you the one thing to love on earth, the Blessed Sacrament. There you will find romance, glory, honor, fidelity, and the true way of all your loves on earth, and what's more, death. Romance and glory and honor, fidelity, love, and death." Good brothers and sisters, I'm honored to be with you. I'm happy to be here at the culmination of a journey with 50 pilgrims who have traveled with the University of Mary in the course of the past week in the footsteps of the saints and martyrs of North America. We began in Quebec and went to Montreal and then down to Auriesville to the shrine of the North American martyrs, and then over to the tomb of Blessed Michael McGivney in New Haven. And now we're all here with you at this Mass, worshiping together, ready to go out there onto the streets. But are we ready, since we have an argument with God? Are we not somehow ashamed to go out there? And what are we trying to prove anyway? But you know, in the midst of all of these questions, I can't shake something. Deep within me, I'm haunted by the memory of one of the saints whom we have met along the way on this pilgrimage, St. Isaac Jogues. St. Isaac Jogues, as you probably know, whose statue is on the bronze front doors of this grand cathedral. St. Isaac Jogues was one of the North American martyrs. He came here to North America in 1636. All he had with him was his cassock and a mass kit, because he was going to bring Jesus in the Eucharist to the people of this new world. A year after his arrival, he wrote back home and he said, "We must always keep in mind that everything we do for God, for His glory. Earthly things are capable of completely absorbing our souls, but can never really satisfy them. Earthly things are capable of completely absorbing our souls, but can never satisfy them, because only God is important. Therefore, all our loves, our confidence, our affections, our thoughts, our desires, our ambitions, I repeat, all are consecrated for Him." And he lived that way here on frontier territory in the dangers of the wild, preaching the gospel, baptizing, celebrating Mass, and giving people Jesus in the Eucharist. At a certain point, though, he was captured by a band of Mohawk and brought here to New York, to Auriesville, in the middle of the state. And there he was tortured and tortured and tortured. His fingers were gnawed off or cut off, leaving him incapable of holding the host to celebrate Mass in the way that was required at that time. So all of a sudden, the man who had come as a priest to bring the Eucharist to this continent himself could not receive the Eucharist, and went for 17 long months of his captivity and after his escape not receiving the Eucharist, which he longed for and which he loved. Some Dutch Protestant trappers and traders and missionaries secured his release and brought him finally here to Manhattan. Isaac Jogues was the first priest ever to step foot upon this island. There was nothing here, just a tiny little Dutch settlement on the southern tip. And there he waited, and there he longed for the Eucharist, which he could not receive, until finally a ship came and took him across the ocean. He arrived on the coast of France in Brittany on Christmas morning. And there he received for the first time in a year and a half Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament, for which he longed. And he said, remembering that moment, he said, "It was that moment which caused me to taste the sweetness of my deliverance. It was that moment in which I started to live again." I can't get him out of my mind as I think about what we are about to do. Why? Because I consider St. Isaac Jogues, this mutilated priest, here upon this island where we are today, at the end of 17 excruciating months without the Blessed Sacrament, without the Eucharist, which he so longed for and loved. And I consider with me his yearning how he burned within. And I have a thought which arises from that. I think that the priestly longing of St. Isaac Jogues 381 years ago this month, when he first arrived here, until he left upon that ship for France, is the foundation of all of New York. Why? Because his longing gave birth to all the longing which is expressed in this city today, though it might be mangled and disordered and untrue. Is there any place upon this earth to compare with New York City as an expression of the insatiable longing of humanity for something? Is there any place like this? The frenetic pace of the city, the avalanche of life upon the streets, all the desire, all the greed, all the ambition, all the violence, all the lust, is the longing of Isaac Jogues for God metastasized and twisted, seeking an answer, wanting to know where it can find rest. G.K. Chesterton said that every man who knocks on the door of a brothel is looking for God. He has the wrong address, though. All the longings of this place, all of the hulking, bulky skyscrapers which reach high into the sky, long ago eclipsing the steeples of this grand church, which reach toward God and plead and ask for mercy. All of that longing, all of that desire, all of that yearning is an expression of the human condition. And the answer to it, as Isaac Jogues knew in his missionary life, as Tolkien, that great novelist, knew when he wrote to his son, as St. Teresa of Avila knew in her crafting of a map of the interior soul of the human person, in all of it, my brothers and sisters, the answer is Jesus Christ in the Blessed Sacrament. The Lord here with us, the answer to all our prayers, all our hopes, sturdy, sure, and true. Yes, the longing of that mangled priest, not the bedrock of this island, is the true foundation of New York City. For that reason, we should be not even the smallest bit afraid or ashamed to pour out onto the streets of this city in procession, because we are restoring this place to its foundation. And in the midst of it, we are putting out to the deep. We are going all out for Jesus. If we have held back on God until now, now is the moment for us really to live the truth which we profess, to hold back nothing at all. Because yes, we have an argument with God, but now is the time to put it to an end.